Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Shywizard. Going to take a look at a part of a mod pack, and I say a part because there's only one particular building that I want to look at in this mod pack. This is the Vanderlist pack, Vanderlist, whatever, version 4 for FS17. Names of things, I just call it a shed, or whatever. Anyway, never mind. I suppose this has got more than just sheds in it. I want to have a look at this particular shed. That's the whole point of it. This is a shed with some animations and whatever else, animated doors, lights, whatever. I want to get this into a map via a Giants editor import. Now, one thing I will say about this particular mod pack itself, I downloaded it and put it in my mod folder as a placeable mod, which is what this is really based around. Obviously the vehicles are just that, they are purchasable vehicles, but the sheds that are in the pack are placeable mods. Now when I tried to purchase this longer version of the shed pack, whatever you want to call it, or part of the pack here, it would not show up in the store. It wouldn't show anything at all. There was nothing there, so I wasn't even able to purchase it, let alone place it on the map. So I actually opened up the mod itself, and that's what we'll have a look at here. I'll put a link in the description to this page anyway, so you can have a look at that. So I've got my sample mod map ready to go to import it and everything. If I open this up, you can see here you've got different vehicles. There's loads of different vehicles there, but there's also these two sheds, halls, whatever you want to call them. This is the slightly larger one, and then this is the smaller one. Now this one works perfectly fine. I can purchase it in game, place it, all of the doors work, the lights work at night, and all the rest of it. But this larger one, which is actually the shed that I would have wanted to work with, because I really like this one, it's actually more my kind of design, I guess, a longer sort of scenario setup. Has a lot of different functions on it and whatever else. Now, whether it came to a point and the author of this particular mod couldn't figure out how to get the animations to work on the doors or whatever else, and they are tricky, let me just say that. Actually setting up all the animations in the XML for every single moving part, they are very, very tricky to do. So I can understand why potentially they don't work, but if it doesn't work, why include it in the mod pack? That's the question that I would put to the person. But irregardless, this one, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to work. And I also found when I went through it that there were some errors that came up. When I clicked on the input light trigger, if we look in the console, there's no errors at the moment. But as soon as I click on this one, it comes up and says, warning, the selected shape does not have any material properties. So perhaps this is an unfinished project, and version 5, this will then all work and function. I do not know. But again, like I say, I would ask the question, if it doesn't function and you can't buy it even as a placeable, then why include it in the mod pack? Again, I'm not sure on that. But irregardless, we have the other one to work with, I guess. So what I want to do then is take this one and then incorporate that into my sample mod map here as a Giants editor import. Because placeables are fine and everything, but certain times, especially when you actually get to see the size of this particular shed, it can be quite difficult to find an area in your map, or anybody's map for that matter, where to put it as a placeable, because the terrain will potentially not be formed in a way that the shed will place down on the map in a way that you can actually access it, or you might even find that you just don't have the space to actually put it in. And you end up, having to put it in the middle of a field or something, and then lose a field that you could be putting crop in or whatever. So anyway, I'm just going to go with this as a Giants editor import, and then join all the parts together and hopefully get some sort of functioning shed as a Giants editor import. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy over the folder. I'm going to put it in my maps folder here, and then what I will do, I'm going to close that one down for now. I'm going to rename the actual folder here because I don't want it to be called that. So I'm just going to call it something really simple, shed. There we go. Call it barn, whatever. Keep it the same as it was. Entirely up to you. Do what you want with it. So in here, obviously, we have all of our parts as a placeable mod, but there's going to be a lot here that I don't actually need for the Giants editor import. So like the decal there for the store, this is our store page icon. Because this is using the add store category, that will be the category in the store that it's going to be now listed under, so I don't need that. I also don't need that script because it doesn't work, it's not required as a Giants editor import, so I can remove both of those. This one here is again for our in-store picture, so I don't require that one, so I can get rid of that as well. And our XML here, again, this is all to do with the placeable stuff, so I don't actually need any of this stuff either, because that's going to give me, you know, certain setups for animated objects and whatever else, and the lighting system and our clear areas and whatever else as a placeable. So again, that's an XML that I can get rid of. The animated objects XML here, I'm actually going to keep that one because it will be required. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cut and paste it. I'm going to cut it from that folder and put it in my maps folder. Potentially, if I was bringing in many different objects that had animated functionality, I would just want the one XML and then just add to this XML. I wouldn't particularly want to go down the road of having multiple XMLs for animated objects. Sometimes you have to, because you will end up with duplications of indexes and things like that, but where avoidable, try not to have duplications of indexes in the first place. But otherwise, you know, that's the way that I would do it. Just have the one animated objects XML and then put everything in the one. So anyway, we've now moved that one out of the way. Like your sounds and things like that, if you wanted to, you could take these and put them in your sounds folder. So again, it keeps everything in one particular place. We have a shader here which I already know exists in this particular map, so again I can get rid of that. So I can get rid of my sounds folder. It's just minimalizing things that, you know, you don't need to have duplications of, and whatever else, like Corona White for example, we have that in our shared folder here. So, you know, as long as it's going to give the same effect, I could get rid of that one as well. And then all I would need to do is open up the actual i3D here and point everything in the appropriate places. So for this one, for example, I will just point it into my shared folder like so, and then my shader here, again I would point that towards my shaders folder, and all the other stuff can stay as it is. So I can go ahead and save that. And if I just open this up in the Giants editor, just to make sure we have no errors, which we do not, so all of those parts are linked in correctly before we do our import, and we've minimalized the things that we're going to have in our folder. And obviously the mod desk will be deleted later on, but I need this to take the information for the animated object stuff and bring it into the mod desk for the map, so we'll do that a little bit later on. So I'm going to open up the map here in Giants editor and then import the mod into the map itself, and then potentially set up all the other parts as we go along. So just go to File, Import, make sure I'm in the right folder here, so Maps, Shed, and then we'll just double click on that. And then I'm going to highlight it, Control B, and we'll just bring it over, place it on the map somewhere, and I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees, and then just put it somewhere like so. And that's kind of placed it roughly the height that I would want it to be anyway, so that's good enough. I can go with that. So the next thing then we need to do, as I say, is join all the parts together. So if we look at our doors and whatever else, we have our user attributes window open. If it isn't, then just go window and then user attributes, and you'll get this window pop up. It might not necessarily be over here, it might be over here or wherever else, but you can position it wherever you want by just clicking and dragging and whatever. So all of the index, the script is all set up. Our XML file name is there, but it's not now correct because I've brought it into the map. So the actual path file name now is maps and then animated objects XML. So all I need to do here is just type in their maps like so and hit tab and lock it in. So now that path file name is correct for that XML, I can make a copy of all of that and add it into this one as well. So both of those doors are now linked in to the correct XML for the animated objects to work correctly. Okay, fantastic. So next thing then I'm going to look at is we've got clear areas in this particular model because obviously that's required for the placeable version, so it deletes foliage textures around it. And if you're using seasons, it will then create an area where snow will no longer fall and all that sort of stuff. So we don't need that necessarily for the Giants editor import. I would need to paint down the snow mask around it and inside it and whatever else for seasons. And other than that, it's not really required because I could just remove any foliage around it in Giants editor that potentially would get in its way. So I can go ahead and delete those, don't need them anymore. So our lights and whatever else here, we're going to have a little bit of a play around with those because there are some parts that I'm going to need to set up slightly differently, because as a placeable, the lights are controlled through the XML that come with the mod, which I actually already deleted, but I can show you that if we go into here. In the XML for the mod itself, the lights are controlled here. So you have nightlight object and then the index to those particular lights. So that is basically controlling what turns the lights on at night. But this will no longer work with a Giants editor import. That XML is not relevant. It's not going to be used in the Giants editor import. So we need to do it a little bit differently. So what I'm actually going to do is take a look at one of the lamps here, which also come on at night. So if I click on one of these, you can see from these user attributes here that these particular lights have the onCreate Nightlight 2 onCreate script set up for them. So what I'm going to try and do is just replicate that onto the lights we have for our building here. So this may not work, not really sure. We can have a look and see what the way these are set up and then try and, like I say, reproduce that somewhat. So if we look at that, we've got lighting and then those parts there. So might have to we're going to do it on this one, I think. And we will need to do that for all of these. Potentially, actually, what I think I might do instead is take it on that one instead. So we'll do it on this transform group, and then hopefully it will work for all of those inside. Not really sure if that will be the case or not, but we'll try that and see what happens. Can always adjust it later on if it doesn't work the first time. So I'm just going to see if we can actually put it on this transform group and then have all of them work off of the one user attribute. So I'm going to come into here and go on create. I'm going to create that as a script callback because we are using a script. So I'm just going to come up to here and take the information from there and put it into this one here like so. Hit tab and lock that in. That should be okay. We'll try that and see what happens. If not, then I might need to make some adjustments, but going to see what that does. So if we say that that is going to work, for now at least, I should now have all of my animated objects set up correctly and functioning for the doors and also the lights. So I'm going to go ahead and save the map. And then what I'm going to do is we can close that down now because I don't need that open anymore. And then I'm going to make my adjustments to the mod desk to include the parts for the animated object information. So obviously in my particular mod desk I've already got some information here for different animated parts and whatever else. So I may not need to bring over certain parts, but I just want to show you what you will need to bring over. And these are pretty much standard, standard names for any of the animated object information, your doors and your lights and stuff like that. So if you actually go back into the animated objects XML, you can see in here are controls. We've got animated object open door, animated object closed door, and then inputs for our open door and closed door here as well. And this is the text that we're going to be joining together these parts here with the appropriate translations in the mod desk. So if we look at the mod desk here, we have input animated object open door, and that's what we have here. And then this one is input animated object closed door, which is what this one is here. So those all link in together. And then for our actual key bindings that we're going to be using, which is what these are for here, they are basically for this stuff down here, our input bindings. So all of this information links into our animated objects XML, which then obviously links into the animated object within the mod itself. So I don't actually need to bring them over because I've got them for other mods already there, because like I say, they're somewhat based around the default kind of input bindings and text information. But I just wanted to show you that that's something you potentially will need to bring in to your map if it's required. Okay, so just before we go into game then and test all this out, what I want to do is join all of the other parts for our sounds up together, because I've moved them to a different folder. And even if I hadn't, because of the way that I've placed the folder in my maps folder here, the path file name in the animated objects XML is no longer relevant from what it was as a placeable. So I've put these in the sounds folder in my maps folder here, like so. So I now need to basically link that path file name incorrectly. So it's going to be maps and then sounds and then the actual WAV file itself. So all I need to do in the XML here is just type in maps at the beginning of that and a /. Do the same down here, maps /. Now that will link into the correct path file name and correct folder to locate our sound files for the doors and all the rest of it. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, close all that down, and then we can get into game. I'll put this in the mod folder and get into game and actually test the functionality of the building out. Okay, so we're now in game then, and as you can see, I've got Seasons mod installed, and it starts you off quite early in the morning with Seasons mod, and all of the street lights are on. So now what we want to see then is, by setting up that user attribute to cover all of the lights in one go from that single transform group, does that get the lights all working? And from what I can see, I'm going to say the answer is yes, which is really, really nice. There we go. So we don't have to do each individual light, we can just do the one transform group in this particular model. So that's really nice. I mean, looking at the actual XML for this, it was controlled by one single index. So I had a good idea that that would work, but sometimes it can catch me off guard and not do what I think it's going to do. But anyway, so we have all of that information there set up correctly for our lights to come on at night. And if I actually speed up time here, so we get round to a bit of daylight, they then turn off. Fantastic. So if I bring up the F1 menu here again and come up to the door, you can see now with all of the information linked through the XMLs, the animated object XML, the actual mod desk XML, and the user attributes, we have our information. Left mouse button to open door and right mouse button to close door. So if I press the left mouse button, the door opens, press the right mouse button, the door closes. So all of those animated object functions are working perfectly fine. And again, with the door here, I click and it opens. With the left mouse button, click again and it closes. Fantastic. So what I'm going to do then is, I want to just show you, if I go into the store here, I have actually put both of the buildings in my mod folder. But when I go into the actual store category here, it only shows this one building. The other one does not show up at all, which is quite a good thing in my opinion, because of the errors that I come across when looking at it. If it was even purchasable, I don't think anything would work anyway. So not quite sure, again, like I say, what's been going on there. But if I actually go to buy this one, and I'm going to have to cheat in some money here, but that's fine. So we'll just cheat in some money, and I'll purchase this particular shed, and I'll do a bit of a rotation here to put them side by side. Something like that will be fine. And you can see that this one functions exactly the same, but just as a placeable. So, you know, it depends what kind of scenario you want to go into. If you're happy with a placeable, then stick with this. But like I said earlier on, potentially the map you're going to be putting it into, there isn't an area big enough for the particular unit to be placed, or there is, but due to the nature of placeables, it just won't allow you to put it in there because it's interacting with other collisions or whatever else. So a giant editor import is potentially the way to go. But again, you know, this one's going to work exactly the same. Left mouse button to open the door, right mouse button to close it, and again this one here with the left mouse button to open and close. And they both work exactly the same with the lights. If I actually speed up time again here and get round to some night time, you can see that the lights all come on inside and outside for both the placeable and the Giants Editor import. I'm Shywizard. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.